compared to September last year. And so that is the reason, part of the reason why the debt service costs have increased. Our arrear debt, especially from municipalities, is increasing. Part of the issue here is that there was a court ruling in the Northern Cape where a judge ruled that Eskom cannot switch off municipalities that are in default. We are still waiting for a court date for the matter to be ventilated properly because that was on an urgent basis. But as a result of that, quite a number of municipalities have taken advantage and have allowed their debt to increase because they know that there is a court ruling that says we cannot switch off municipalities. The matter will be heard in March, and in the meantime, we are going to try and accelerate our prepaid program because prepaid deals with the issue of debt in a very decisive way. As I said earlier, we have secured 86% of funding for the 2016-17 financial year, and 28% of funding for 17-18. Outlook for our ratings, we are on negative watch from Standard & Poor's. Moody's has put us on a review for downgrade and stable with Fitch. It is worth noting that when Moody's issued their press statement to put us on a review for downgrade, they said, amongst others, in fact, it was the first point, they are concerned with the rate at which we are connecting the independent power producers because they are not convinced that our balance sheet can absorb it. Again, I'm just stating a statement of fact. I'm not trying to determine policy, nor am I purporting to be competent at setting policy. These are the credit rating concerns and how we are addressing them. Our large CAPEX program, our response is that the delivery of the new build program is ahead of schedule and within costs. In the last 18 months, we have really been pulling our socks up with the delivery of the capital expenditure program. Our weak financial profile, our response is that our financial ratios are already showing signs of significant improvement, and our ratios are expected to improve in future and to move to investment grade levels within 5 years. We hope that we can perhaps move this company into investment grade in the next 3 to 5 years. A challenging regulatory environment. We are cognizant of the fact that the current court case ruling impacts on our ability to recover costs as per the NERSA rules, and we have applied for leave to appeal, which will be heard during November 2016. Rising energy costs is a concern that the rating agencies have also raised, and we are happy to report that in this period that we're reporting, total primary energy costs reduced by 15%. And funding and liquidity, we have liquid assets of 44 billion as at the 30th of September, and we have completed funding, 86% of funding for 2016-17 and 28% funding for 2017-18. This is the improvement in generation operating performance. You'll see that the energy availability factor, which was 71%, has improved to 78.5%. Unplanned maintenance in September 2015 was about 14.8%, and now it is down to 9.7%, which is below 10%, which is international standards. We have continued to experience improvements in the network performance. Transmission system minutes lost were 2.74. There was a slight deterioration there. And this was as a result of a few large incidents that occurred impacting the transmission system's minutes lost. The distribution network performance is within acceptable limits. Energy losses are under control at 8.6% for total system loss. And we have a total customer base of 5.8 million, with 5.7 million being residential customers. We remain focused on bringing new capacity online. Medupi Unit 6 was commissioned in August 2015, commercial operation, 794 megawatts. Ingula Unit 4 was received commercial operation in June 2016. Ingula Unit 2, commercial operation in August 2016. And Ingula Unit 1, commercial operation in August 2016. Ingula Unit 3 will be in commercial operation by January 2017, but I hope that it will be in commercial operation by Christmas, just symbolically. And Medupi Unit 5 has been synchronized to the grid and is on schedule to come into commercial operation by March 2018. Kusile Unit 1 will come into commercial operation by 2018. In fact, we have lit the first fires at Kusile, and I think last weekend we had steam coming out of Kusile for the first time. Although there are problems that are being experienced now, but we still hope that it will also be synchronized either in December or January and come into commercial operation by March. Kusile Unit 1. This is the capital program going forward. Medupi Unit 5 will come into commercial operation in March 18, Ingula Unit 3 by January 17 or before Christmas, Kusile Unit 1, July 18, Medupi Unit 4, July 18, Kusile Unit 2, July 19, and Medupi Unit 2, 7,994 megawatts, December 19, Duva Unit 3, 600 megawatts, March 2020, and Medupi Unit 1, May 2020, Kusile Unit 4, March 2021, and Kusile Unit 5, November 2021, and Kusile Unit 6, September 2022. 9,104 megawatts will be commissioned over the next 6 years. Over the next 6 years, until 2022, we expect the surplus that we have to increase. And hopefully that will stimulate industrial development, it will stimulate agriculture and mining, and stimulate economic activity and job creation in South Africa. It also gives us an opportunity to supply electricity to Southern African countries and a bit of export income. Question is, so why do we need nuclear? This is up to 2022, and this surplus will start decreasing as soon as this program comes to an end in 2022. We expect that by 2026, we will start having problems again. We will need new capacity again 10 years from now. So between 2022 to 2026, there will be 4 years of a declining surplus. Between now and 2022, there will be 6 years of increasing surplus, but it will start declining, and it should get into critical levels by 2026. That is why we need to start with nuclear procurement now. The first 5 years of nuclear procurement will be planning, just planning. My experience is we have to arrive at design freeze before we hit the ground. If you look at major construction projects in South Africa and elsewhere, part of the reason that they go into problems of exceeding the budget has been the absence of design freeze. It happened at Medupi, where when a crisis hit, we went and took the plans of Majuba and tried to build in Medupi. And after we hit the ground, we found that the soil conditions were not the same, the tectonic conditions were not the same, and we wanted to initially build 3 units, and we increased it to 4 during construction and now to 6, and all of that results in what people call over-expenditure, but people never distinguish between over-expenditure and increasing capacity. But the fact of the matter is that we went and started building before we had design freeze. It's like building a house when the plans are not complete. And while you're still building a house, somebody comes and says, change this window, put it there, don't put this window there, and so on, which results in delays and confusion and so on. We experienced it in the pipeline at Transnet when I was there. We started digging the trench to Durban to build a 9-inch pipeline, and after the project had started, there was a government decision to say increase the pipeline's capacity to 24-inch, because if you're digging a 650-kilometer trench to put the pipe in it, why do you make it 9-inch when you can make it 24-inch, which is perfectly reasonable, except that that was not the plan. And so you have to start all over again, and this results in over-expenditure. And so that is the experience that I have with big capital projects, that I think we should take 5 years just to do thorough planning. In the first 6 months of the year, we added 999 megawatts of capacity onto the grid, and that is from the 3 units of Ingula. By the end of the year, this will at least be 1,200 or 1,300 with the additional unit from Ingula, Unit 3. Transmission lines, 53 kilometers of transmission lines have been built, have been commissioned during the first 6 months of the year, and we have built 1,050 substations, MVAs. LTIR improved from 0.36 to 0.30 in this first year, in this first half of the year. 1 employee and 4 contractor fatalities were experienced during the period. The employee was a direct Eskom employee. Last year, in the same period, in the first half of the year, we had 3 employee fatalities who are Eskom employees. Particulate emissions improved. You will be happy to hear that particulate emissions improved during the first half of the year. Water consumption at power stations worsened in the first half of the year. But this is, I think, deceptive, because in the capital build programs, we also use a lot of water. For example, Unit 5 of Medupi, when we wanted to switch it on, it had to be rinsed with a lot of water to remove the dust that had accumulated during construction. The sludge that came out of the machines and the dust was actually phenomenal. And I think the people spend a couple of days just using a lot of water to flush out the dust. And so I'm not sure if that is part of these numbers, which do not directly relate to production, but to the commissioning and the new build program. Operation Khanyisa campaign, we've resulted in 50 arrests for electricity theft, and we have 26 cases on the court roll pending. Our own security investigations made 144 arrests, and goods to the value of 29 million were recovered during the period 1st of April to 30th of September 2016. We committed corporate social investment spend of 75 million, benefiting 120,000 beneficiaries. Procurement from BBB compliant suppliers as a percentage of procurement was 65%, as I have said, but this was as a result to suppliers without valid BEE certificates due to changes in the codes during the current period. Local content contracted more than 80%, and we managed more than double the number of households electrified from to more than double the number of households electrified from 41,000 to 99,000 for the 6 months to 30th of September 2016. Almost 5 million since inception. We have 3,569 technical, engineering, and artisan learners in the pipeline. 2.75% of our employees are people with disabilities. Racial equity is at 61.7%, and professional and middle management 72.7%. I know we call it racial equity here, but racial equity I think means the ratio of the black employees to the total number of employees. Gender equity, which is women to the total number of employees, is 28.5%, and in professional and middle management, 35.7%. This is, the gender equity numbers are not something that we are proud of. It is something that we have requested all the divisions and all the units at Eskom to improve because we need better gender representativity in Eskom. In conclusion, Eskom's turnaround is solid and continues to stabilize the organization. We have improved generation performance. The new build program is delivering to plan. Financial profitability and liquidity have been restored. Excess capacity currently exists and is projected to grow steadily over the next 3 to 6 years. And we call on customers to increase consumption, especially industrial customers, to increase consumption, and we ask them to engage with Eskom proactively to take advantage of the excess capacity situation. Now, there is a matter that I want to talk about. Last year when I joined Eskom, on the 17th of April 2016, we were experiencing load shedding, and in fact 3 months before, an opinion had been expressed that Eskom may not be able to pay salaries. So we had a liquidity problem, we had no cash, and we were load shedding, and we were using diesel. And our primary energy costs were high. Sometime in May, Glencore came to Eskom and said, we have a contract with you to supply you with coal at 150 Rand until 2018. This was a 30-year contract that they had inherited, but they bought into the situation knowing what the conditions were. But so we had a contract with them that they would supply us with coal at 150 Rand per ton, which contract was to expire in 2018. They came to Eskom and said, we would like to increase that price to 530. In fact, Mr. CEO, they said, we've been negotiating this issue for the last so many months, and we are very close to agreeing. And I said to them, and I said to management, and I take responsibility for this, I said, no. Eskom doesn't have the money to buy coal at 530, where it already has a contract to be supplied at 150. We don't have that money. I'm afraid that had our decision at that time been to increase and bend over backwards for Glencore, to increase the price from 150 to 530, we would still be having a public protector report that says we are corrupt. Because what would have been the reason when we are experiencing load shedding and we have a cash crunch to agree to change an existing contract with a supplier from 150 to 530? We did not agree to do it. That decision led to a domino effect of phenomenal proportions. Mr. Glazenberg came here and said, Mr. Molefe, do you realize that if we stop supplying you with coal because we don't have the 150, we can't use the 150, you will have more load shedding. You will have more load shedding. And he was talking as we were in the middle of a load shedding crisis in June or July. And I said, Mr. Glazenberg, I mean, if you're putting a gun to my head, you must shoot. We don't have 530 period. Then Glencore, of their own accord, went and put the company under business rescue. Part of business rescue law says that the business rescue practitioners can suspend existing contracts. On the day that the company was put in business rescue, the business rescue practitioners wrote us a letter saying, you will have to supply us with coal, or you will have to pay us 530 rand for the coal that we deliver to you as business rescue practitioners, or we will stop supply in 24 hours. Now, stopping supply of Henrina means losing a whole power station in the middle of load shedding. That is what happened. The business rescue practitioners, because we did not respond to their letter because I interpreted it to be blackmail, the business rescue practitioners stopped supplying us with coal. They stopped supplying us with coal at the beginning of August 2016. They stopped supplying us with coal at Henrina. During the month of August 2016, we had to go 2015. During the month of August 2015, we had to scavenge for coal in that area of Henrina and from other coal miners. We had also built a healthy stockpile, and we could survive for a while during that standoff. And survive we did. Henrina Power Station did not have to be shut down because of a shortage of coal, because Glencore and Optimum were not supplying us with electricity, with coal, or rather the business rescue practitioners. A threat that I had heard for the first time from Glencore, Mr. Glazenberg. So, incidentally or ironically, what happened during that month is Henrina was not shut down, and we stopped load shedding in that month. Load shedding stopped on the 8th of August 2015. We haven't had load shedding since the 8th of August 2015, and that includes the month in which we were not supplied with coal from the Optimum mine. One day on my way to Cape Town at about 6 o'clock in the evening, as I was getting into a flight, I got a phone call from Mr. Clinton Ephron. And he said, Mr. Molefe, we would like to talk again. We were at least getting 150 from you, now we're not getting anything. At that time, we had been buying coal at about 400. Coal that had been contracted to us at 150, and I was still in my head making plans to sue them for the difference at some point. But anyway, that's another matter. We would like to resume operations and supply you again at 150. But we would like to talk. I said, Mr. Ephron, I have nothing to talk to you. You must just resume operations by tomorrow, 8 o'clock in the morning, and then we can talk. He said, let me talk to my boss, I'll come back to you. He called after 10 minutes and said, I've spoken to my boss. I'm sorry to disappoint you. We won't make it 8 o'clock, we'll make it 10 o'clock. I said, 10 o'clock is fine. And then the air hostess told me to switch off my phone. And I went to Cape Town. The following day at 10 o'clock, they restarted operations and have been supplying us with coal at 150. The business rescue practitioners. Now, when he said, we want to talk, but we want, and I said, you can only talk after you've restored supply, they came to us and said, well, under the circumstances, we would like to sell the mine. We said, that is your decision. That is your decision. We stick into our contract, and by the way, we have already issued summons for the 2 billion for the penalties. And we're not moving on that. We need that 2 billion because we've got a load shedding situation here. The cost of primary energy is shooting through the roof. We don't have liquidity. We're rated as junk because we can't make hard-nosed decisions, tough decisions. So, you want to sell? You can sell, I said to them. And several people expressed interest in selling. And those discussions, I consider them as confidential, except one. Mr. Putumantlego, and I say it because he made representations to the public protector, and his representations are in the public protector's report. So there's no longer confidentiality. Even though my understanding was that in having a discussion with them, it was in confidence. Mr. Putumantlego. And he said, we would like to buy Optimum, but we want to know from you that after we have bought, you will increase the price and write off the 2 billion. I said, I can't make that promise. I wouldn't be able to make that promise to you because if I can do that with you, why can't I do it with Glencore? I will be accused of corruption. I can't do that. He said, well, and he wrote a letter, a very confidential letter, in which he says, well, our interest remains, but we would like to know that you will not sell this mine to other people under different conditions. And I was okay with that because we were quite determined to get our coal at 150 and to get our 2 billion back. So, then Tegeta and the Guptas came in. I must be honest and say they also said that they would like the price to be increased and the penalty to be done away with. And we said no, absolutely no. But then they took a decision to buy. And they communicated it to Glencore. And Glencore said it is happy to do a deal with them. And they signed a sale agreement. And I must say, on that day that the sale agreement was signed, I was not there pointing a gun at anybody's head. I never threatened anyone that if they don't buy and so on, nothing. They did it. The deal went to the Competition Commission and it was approved. The deal went to the creditors of the Optimum, and the creditors of Optimum were mainly the banks, virtually all of them. And they approved the deal. It came to us for the cession of the contracts. By the way, the contracts say we cannot refuse to cede the contracts unreasonably. So when the deal is signed, the Competition Commission has been granted, the creditors have agreed, what would be my reason for not agreeing to the cession? So we agreed to the cession. The cession was done and the deal was complete. And I don't know what the arrangements were between them and the managers, the rescue. But that company has been in rescue management since it was sold. And it has been supplying us at Henrina at the contracted price. And we could not pursue the 2 billion rand while the company was under business rescue. But now it's come out of business rescue, we've started pursuing the 2 billion again. Because that is what we said we will do. So, incidentally, towards the end of last year, there was another contract called Anod. Now, if you think 500 is expensive, we were buying from Anod at 1,132 per ton. This was a 40-year contract. I have had the privilege of reading the original contract, which was done 40 years ago last year. And I mean, it said things like, Eskom is going to pre-fund before they start operations the staff quotas for black people and the staff quotas for white people. So over and above the capital expenditure, because it was a cost plus mine. So actually it was some kind of pre-funding as well, prepaid. But what struck me was the different staff quotas. But anyway, that was South Africa then, 40 years ago. But this is a contract which must be renewed. And in their negotiations, they did not want to renew the contract at 1,132. Not that we would have agreed, but they wanted 1,400. And we said no. We said no, we won't do it at 1,400. We can buy coal. I know that we can buy coal at 500 or 400. Why must we pay 1,400? And there was a big brouhaha about us trying to not being concerned about the welfare of the miners that were working there, and so on. In fact, even a bit of misinformation to the unions, because I think some of the unions made some unfortunate statements at the time without having facts. So, We were now getting experienced in the business of scavenging for coal. And we got 9 suppliers, including Optimum under Glencore, before the deal was done with Tegeta, to supply coal at Anot at the end of the contract. And they supplied coal at Anot until May. In May, 7 of them said they could not continue because they have other obligations. 2 remained, Umsimbeti and Glencore, and Optimum. Now, in May, Optimum was still under rescue management, but it was owned by Tegeta. They came to us and said there is a portion of the mine which Glencore had not been mining because of the international price of coal that has good quality coal, but to restart the operations there and give us the coal at Anot, transport it to Anot. They don't have the money for it, partly because their bank accounts are closed. They don't have the money for it, and they would like us to prepay for it. And we said, can you provide us with coal for 3 months? And they said, yes. And we agreed. And we took 100% of the shares of Tegeta as security. And for 3 months, June, July, August, they supplied the coal in terms of the contract of the prepayment. The prepayment coal has been delivered. The prepayment debt is settled. I don't understand what the public protector means by wasteful expenditure. It is settled. They don't owe us money from the prepayment deal. We did the prepayment deal because the prepayment deal was done with other companies in the past. However, my gripe with the whole situation is that the public protector never called me or Mr. Singh, the CFO, to come and give our version of events. She asked for files. We gave her 120 files in 13 boxes that had to do with prepayment and even prepayment from other transactions. 120 files were given to the public protector. She subpoenaed us, and we had a date with her to come and explain what was happening. I would have told her the story if I had been given the opportunity. She didn't. She canceled the meeting. She canceled the meeting. We never appeared in front of the public protector. She sent us a list of questions. First question was, what is your job description at Eskom? We answered that. I think it was a 2-page answer. One of the questions was, so what was your role in signing or in giving contracts to Tegeta at the other mines, Brakfontein and the others? I said none, because they happened before I was employed at Eskom. Then she asked for the details of the prepayment. We gave them to her the day before she released the report. And it was quite substantive amount of information the day before she released the report. And then she, well, not the day before she released it, the day before she finalized it, the day before she left office. And, but she never called us. And therein lies my gripe. I was never given an opportunity to explain myself by the public protector. I thought the Constitution also talked about the right to be heard. In fact, It is very painful to me because 3 months ago, there's a guy in Cape Town called Mr. Kumalo, Sean Kumalo, who lives with his mother. He tampered with his prepaid meter twice, and both occasions he admitted the guilt and paid the fine that was imposed by Eskom, Western Cape Operating Unit. He paid the fine. He said, yes, it's true. I have tampered with the meter twice. Third time, technician came to his house. We found the meter had been tampered with. The technician knows this customer very well. He disconnected him immediately, and Eskom imposed a fine of 12,000 rand. And he was disconnected. Mr. Kumalo went to the public protector. The public protector correctly said that Eskom is guilty of maladministration because on the third time, we did not give Mr. Kumalo a chance to give his version of what had happened to the meter. And I think the public protector was right. I immediately said to the Western Cape Operating Unit, don't fight about this, reconnect him. And he was promptly reconnected. Reconnect him. We did not give him a chance to be heard. Reconnect him. And we reconnected him. On the day that the public protector made at the press briefing, talked about this case, this finding against Eskom, she said, Eskom is wrong and are guilty of maladministration. Because, for example, when a person is known to be a goat thief, a guy who steals goats, one day when he's seen walking next to a herd of goats, it does not mean that he has been stealing them. He needs to be heard. And I like that example. That is what our Constitution is about. A guy is not a goat thief until you've proven that he's stolen the goats. Not that he once stole goats. But what surprised me is that the public protector says, my cell phone reflects that I was in Saxon World 14 times, in the area of Saxon World, close to the proverbial head of goats. I was there in Saxon World. My cell phone record says I was in the area. My cell phone record says I was in the area. This morning, I walked into the office and I said to Chose, public protector says I was in the Saxon World 14 times, according to my cell phone records. And Chose says that's nothing. She should have checked mine, he says. He says that, Chose says, he goes there every Friday after work. And on Saturday, he also goes sometimes. I said, why? He says, there's a shebeen there. There's a, what's it called? No, but there's a shebeen there. I think it's 2 streets away from the Gupta house. Now, I will not admit or deny that I was going to the shebeen, but because I haven't, my young wife is not aware that there's a shebeen there. But there's a shebeen there. And it made me think of another story, actually, that is actually more frightening. You know, I live in Pretoria, in Irene. Every day, I come to work on the N1. And in the evening, I drive home on the N1. And I pass the Olifantsfontein off-ramp. And if you take the Olifantsfontein off-ramp and turn right, you're going to Teasers, which is just next to the highway. My cell phone records will reflect that I was near teasers, or I am every day of the week, twice a week, twice a day, in the morning and the evening. My cell phone records reflect that I'm close to teasers. Uncomfortably close to teasers. I'm not sure that that is the spirit of our Constitution. I'm not sure that that is the spirit of our Constitution. When I said in Parliament, I'm captured by the Constitution, I was talking about incidents like that of Mr. Kumar, where I acknowledge that he should have been heard. But I would like to say that I should also have been heard. I'm happy about Mr. Pravin Gordhan's case because it was an opportunity to hear what's happening. And there was nothing to be heard, and it was dismissed. In our case, the public protector has painted me with a corrupt brush. There will be a commission of inquiry established 6 months from now. We will get the results maybe 18 or 24 months from now. During that period, my children will be taunted at school. Your father is corrupt, your father is corrupt. When there is no basis. When I think there is no basis. When I do not think that the basis of what she says about Eskom and myself is correct. Having said that, I've had time to apply my mind to this matter. I think it's all because we refused to give Glencore 570 rand for coal. It goes back to the rest. And even at that point when they said it's 570 rand, it was immediately a catch-22 situation. It was a catch-22. If what I know now, I think if we'd given them the 530, there would have been a public protector inquiry, and we would not have been able to justify our actions. And we didn't. It still ended there. It's a catch-22 situation. I would like to take responsibility for that decision. It was not a decision made by Eskom employees. It was a decision that was made with my EXCO, but I'm the leader of EXCO. I'm the chief executive of Eskom. I take responsibility for that, even though it threw us into an unfortunate set of circumstances. I do not agree that the board should resign over this matter. I will take responsibility as the CEO. And I will go to the Commission of Inquiry. We will even ask for a judicial review of the Public Protector report. I do not think that my minister should resign over that decision of 530 rand. I also don't think the president should resign because we decided not to give Glencore 530 rand when we had a contract for 150. The president did not even know anything about it as far as I'm concerned. And he calls for his resignation, I think, out of line. I will resign before he does. So, I saw this morning in the media that the board must stand down. I will weigh my options and I will consider, because if this situation was to arise again, because last night I said the whole night, agonizing, what could we have done differently? And I found nothing. But what pains me the most is I never had the opportunity to explain what I'm saying now to Advocate Tulima Donsel. Thank you.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, this is the opportunity for you to be heard and we will give you a chance to do so. Before we start, I know there are a few people who arrived late for other reasons, but before that, let me give the chairman a chance to say a word or two.
Well, I would like to say Thuli Madonsela has struck a deadly blow against Eskom and against the people of South Africa. If we lose Brian, she takes the blame.
If you don't mind, we will just maybe give Mr. Molefe a chance to compose himself, and then we will take it from there. But for those of you who arrived late, I know there's a few.
We will have a press conference tomorrow, so I don't think this is a day for questions.
All right. Well,
Too heavy.
sure. Well, ladies and gentlemen, in that case, then, thank you so much. Tomorrow we will be here again at 10:30 for more of our input or response on the public report. And we will also give you more information on our quarterly system briefing on the same day. Tomorrow, 10:30, here at Megawatt Park. Sorry that things didn't go the way we had planned, but this is the situation at the moment. Thank you so much, Chair. Thank you so much for your understanding. We will see you tomorrow, 10:30. I'm not sure.
Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, as the chairman said, tomorrow we are going to have the state of the system, and also it will be your opportunity to ask the questions on the Public Protector's report. Today we will continue to take the questions on the annual report itself. Focus only on the annual report, and tomorrow you'll get enough time to talk of the state of the system and also to talk on the Public Protector's report. Over to you.
Well, apologies for the conflicting messages, but yes, we will take your questions, and as Mr. Chwasa is saying, we will focus exclusively on the results that were presented today. Tomorrow you'll have a chance to ask about other matters, especially the Public Protector report. So if you can have an indication by introducing yourselves, the organization that you represent, and then we'll take it from there. I'm going to start from my left-hand side. I'll go for Mike, ne? Roger, sorry, apologies, Roger. And I'll also go for Charlotte, and then I'll take Antoinette in that order. Thank you. Mike? Roger, sorry.
Yeah. So, good morning, good afternoon already. My name is Roger Lilly. I'm the editor of Energize magazine from the publication EE Publishers. I have two questions, Mr. Chair. The first is that in the light of the recent court case declaring Eskom's 2016-2017 price increase to be unlawful, and in the light of the subsequent appeal of the judgment by both NERSA and Eskom, and the resultant delays by NERSA in proceeding with Eskom's 19 billion and 22 billion rand RCA applications for the 2014-2015 and 2015-2016 financial years, can Mr. Molefe or Mr. Singh please advise us what impact, if any, this will have on Eskom's 2017-18 and subsequent years' financial results? And secondly, how long does Eskom anticipate the consideration by NERSA of its 2014, 2015, and 2015-2016 RCA applications to be delayed? Thank you.
Thank you, Roger. Charlotte?
I'm Charlotte Matthews from Financial Mail. I've also got two questions. The first one was where you said the capital programme is on schedule and on budget. Clearly it's not. It's 10 years behind schedule and well over budget. Could you tell us what revised schedule and revised budget you're referring to? And then secondly, you're due to be decommissioning the older coal-fired power stations. I know you have an investigation into that, but could you just tell us again how much of that is due to come offline and when?
Thank you, Charlotte. Antoinette?
Antoinette Slabbert from MoneyWeb. Could you perhaps give us an idea with regards to the IPP tariff, the average that you're paying now, how you see that coming down, if so, in the light of the lower tariffs in the later rounds? You know, what do you expect it to be next year, the year after? I just want to get an idea of the rate at which it will drop and whether it will remain a serious issue for Eskom, whether it will ever get close to the other sources of energy. And then related to Charlotte's question, you said last time that you are considering, instead of decommissioning, refurbishing some of those old power stations. Can you give us more detail at this stage, when, which, and at what cost, and how the cost benefit will work in comparison with building new capacity? Thanks.
Thank you. I think we'll take those three for now. And if you don't mind, the CE, if you can take them from where you are seated. The camera people have asked that you sit there for their filming purposes. We have a full complement of the EXCO here, and we also, as far as I know, have at least 2 board members, so we will be able to answer all of those questions. Mr. Mlefe?
Yeah, on the impact of the court decision, I'll ask Anush to talk about it.
Thank you, Brian. Yes, there obviously will be an impact. We had factored in the 2 RCAs that are currently with NERSA into our projections for the next 2 years. And the impacts will be as described by the gentleman, 19 billion and 23 billion accordingly. In terms of the expected timing to be able to resolve this, it's currently within the judicial process. And obviously the timing associated with the judicial process is relatively unknown. We hope that from our perspective that it will be resolved as quickly as possible. We have, however, in the interim written to NERSA, as well as the shareholder ministry, in terms of the possible implications and impacts of this negative impact of the RCA on Eskom.
Mr. Masango will talk about the scheduling of capital projects.
Thank you, Chief. On the capital program, yes, we are on schedule. We did indicate and explain to you, I think last year, that subsequent to the delay on the 2 projects, we did the cost and schedule analysis and Monte Carlo analysis. And then out of that, we came up with a probability schedule and the probability of cost, which is P80 and P50, and then we reset. And on the basis of that, we are on schedule to achieve the dates that have been communicated to you. And we've explained to you explicitly in terms of some of the things that went wrong in the past, in terms of us not doing the design freeze and do proper geotech investigation that led us to say that a power station will be constructed in 48 months. Yes, you can construct a power station in 48 months unless you spend 4 to 5 years doing the proper planning. And that's the reason the chief earlier on alluded in terms of the importance of the planning when you do the mega project. But over and above that, we also did indicate to you that we did a comparison with other power stations which are supercritical of the same scale as Medupi and Kusile. One plant is in India, one plant is in Europe, in Poland, and it came out very clear that in terms of the schedule, it takes 9 to 10 years to build a mega project, except the difference was that they took 4 to 5 years to plan, and then they took 4 years to construct. In our case, we took 1 year to plan, and then we took 8 years to construct Medupi. And as a result of that, from the time point of view, it takes the same time. However, from the cost point of view, because our planning in terms of this plant was coming in a piecemeal as indicated earlier on, we started with the 3 units, then 6 units, then another 6 units which went to 12. And that's the reason earlier on we were saying, as far as we are concerned, most of the cost was cost underestimation because we did not freeze the design. And as a result of that, we are very confident that these 2 projects will be delivered earlier than the P80 date as indicated.
The other issue on this matter is that this project started over 8 years ago. Now, last year, one of the things that we had to do is to mount a rescue operation. So we're not talking about the original projects. We're talking about the rescuing and revival of projects that started a long time ago that were already by last year 4 or 5 years late. So when we talk about new target dates, we're talking about target dates that we set ourselves in the rescue operation. And so what we're saying is the recovery and the rescue of these operations is proceeding well and on time and within budget of the rescue operation, not the original planning schedules. Mr. Koko will talk about the decommissioning of power generation plants, as well as IPP tariffs, because he's been writing about them. Even when I say he mustn't write, he writes.
Chief, let me take this opportunity to say to deal with the question you've dealt with again. When Brian came and Anosh came, the bill program was late. Water under the bridge. What did you expect the new leadership to do? They can't focus on the past. So they sit with us and say, guys, you're 3 years or 4 years late. That's it. Water under the bridge. Recommit to a new schedule and recommit to a new timeline. And it is that timeline that we are talking about. And we have a history, we can't wish it away, but judge us on the rebaseline schedule and rebaseline costs, and we are delivering ahead of that. We're currently paying 218 cents per kilowatt hour to buy the IPPs. Our blended cost is 83 cents. We're projecting in 2021, 2022, that the 218 cents per kilowatt hour will be 207 cents per kilowatt hour. That's the impact into the future. Now, I've consistently said that if you take bit 1 up to bit 4.5, the tariff for it builds up to 6%. So if you assume that all what you need to do is to give Eskom a 0 real increase in 2021, 2022, and assume that 6%, the public will see a minimum of tariff increase of 12%. That does not include the tariff that we require to fund our 60 billion rands odd average capital expenditure. It's just unsustainable because we will require an above inflation increase so that we are able to sustain our capital expenditure. But the IPPs already take 6% of it. And if you assume an inflation increase of 6%, boom, it's a minimum of 12%. This is just not sustainable. And this is carried by the consumer. It does not make sense to argue that Eskom must not talk because it's a pass-through. It's nonsensical. We have taken a decision that we will not decommission Hendrina, Kusile, and Khorfle. And we will repower them or modernize them or renew them. We have started engaging with the DOE, and many of you have always said the IRP must be reviewed after 2 years. So we're engaging with them And we're doing the studies with them so that our decision to not decommission these stations and repower them at the levelized cost that we think will be competitive is included into the new IRP. We're starting with Komati, and our intention with Komati is currently at 900 megawatt, and we want to put a CFBC at Komati. And we think that, and you know, guys, you've seen the cost of CFBC on the latest rounds of coal IPPs, and we plan to come below that with Komati. And we think if we do that, we have a very competitive solution for repowering or renewal, fleet, whatever you call it, repowering, fleet renewal. We think it's a sensible thing to do. Of course, it will have to balance our commitment of the CO2 budget. And that comes out of the wash of the balanced energy mix that include the combinations of renewable coal and nuclear.
And for those who do not know, that was Mr. Machela Koko. He is the head of generation within Eskom. Before him, that was Mr. Abraham Masango. He is the head of group capital within the organization. Antoinette, were your questions covered there about the tariffs and things like that? So let's go for another round of questions. I'll take Sikonati, I'll take Angelo, and I'll take the gentleman in the front, Sorman. But you introduce yourself when you get the time. We'll start with Sikonati.
Thank you, sir. Sikonati Manchanja at the Financial Mail and Business Day. Mr. Molefe, can you, well done on the good results first. Can you help us, please, on the nuclear program? You say that Eskom, or you say that we need to start the preparations to build the next capacity in nuclear. Can you give us an idea as to how much Eskom, as in the past, of course, Mr. Koko has also said Eskom is capable of building the nuclear stations. Can you tell us how much capacity Eskom will handle, how it will fund it, and when? Can you also, in that, in your response, tell us what has changed between 2009 and now, when Eskom in 2009 said its balance sheet was incapable of making such a commitment and handed the process formally to the government to run with. Secondly, sir, can you, perhaps this is a question for Mr. Singh, can you give us the debt position of Eskom currently? And how much of that debt is under government guarantee, the balance sheet? What I'm trying to achieve by that is, where does Eskom think it will get money to pay for nuclear? Can you also tell us on the new build, what is the cost today of the new power stations? And well done on Ingula, we seem to be on track there. What is the debt now of that infrastructure that is being built, and what are the repayments in interest? How much is Eskom paying to fund or to service that debt? Thank you.
Thanks, Sikonati. Angela?
Angelo Coppola from China Central Television. Brian, it's a question for you, and I guess for Anant as well. The municipal arrears that have now almost doubled since last year, how are you provisioning for that, and how much are you planning to write off? And what's the reasoning behind that?
Thank you. Then the gentleman in the front.
Thanks. Sorry, it's Warren Dick from MoneyWeb. Thanks. I think just to add to Sikonati's question, and maybe an idea just to float, Brian, is that, and Mr. Koko, obviously, you're about to, with nuclear, undertake one of the biggest CapEx programs I think the country's ever undertaken. There's so much to discuss and understand around that in terms of how it's going to be done, the procurement, the financing, et cetera, et cetera. Maybe an idea for Eskom is just to host a seminar or a mini conference around that, and we can work through all the issues, because it's very tough trying to reconcile statements made by Mr. Malefe, Mr. Koko, et cetera, et cetera. So just an idea there. But my main question is really around philosophy, and I think it's one that you touched on, Mr. Malefe, in your presentation. The fundamental problem Eskom has, as I see it at this point, is that your demand is lower than it was 10 years ago in terms of your domestic electricity consumption. And without an updated IRP, I believe that's on its way. I don't know under what projections you are making CapEx decisions and thinking about nuclear in the next 10 and 20 years looking forward, if you make the assumption that demand might still be lower in the next 10 years than where we are at the moment. And I think part of the problem with the demand that I'd like to put to you is the EIUG, which is consuming about 40% of your product, said to me, said the following, said the biggest issue facing us is that prices are increasing so rapidly that it is making energy-intensive businesses unviable. We are unlikely to see energy-intensive industry investing in SA, and those that are here already will be reducing their output. So if Eskom is unable to lower the costs and make the product more affordable for your biggest consumers, I suggest that your demand is probably going to be lower in 10 years' time than it is now. And therefore, I'd ask you, under what approach can Eskom control the grid and generation if you're unable to lower those costs and make those your electricity more affordable for the big energy-intensive users and consumers? Thank you.
Thank you, Warren. Let me squeeze in one more, just behind you. There's a gentleman there.
Good afternoon. It's Kevin Crowley from Bloomberg News. You mentioned that you have a target of being able to return to investment grade status within 3 to 5 years. I'd just like to know sort of the pathway you see. Like how are you going to do that, given the nuclear build and all the other debt that's around? Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin. We will now give over to Mr. Malefe and the team.
I'll ask Mr. Koko to talk about the funding of nuclear. Or maybe Mr. Singh. Huh?
Yeah, I'll talk about the size. We anticipate, and we've always said, that nuclear will be built in chunks that the country can afford, building up to 9,600 megawatt. And we always said that we will build the first 2 reactors. And we're not only saying that now, but we said it even when we ran our program our Nuclear One program of 2008. Our target, and even the IRP 2010, if you read it and you read at the bottom, says it that you will commit to the first 2 reactors first. And the first 2 reactors, we expect the size to be between 2,400 megawatts to 3,002 megawatt. And the reason is that range is because different vendors provide different sizes. If you pick one range, you will come across as if you favored one supplier. So we will go out on the open inquiry, but our target is to build 2 reactors consistent with what the IRP 2010 say. And then we'll build it up to 9,600 megawatt in 2030 as the IRP does it. And I'd like Anosh to take the funding part of it.
Thanks, Mr. Koko. I think maybe in answering the funding portion of the question, maybe we should start with the third part of the question, which is what has changed. And certainly a lot has changed, and the company is currently a fundamentally different business compared to when that letter that you referred to was written. We've certainly, as we've said already, started delivering on the new build program within its revised timetable. We've certainly learned a lot as an organization from Medupi and Kusile. I think one of the things that Brian keeps on reminding us about is design freeze. And we've certainly learned from that. The balance sheet is currently being strengthened, as you've seen today. The profitability has been restored of the organization. We certainly have much more confidence today than we had 5 years ago around our ability to access the debt capital market. We borrow pretty much 60 to 70 billion without much stress. And yes, in that process, we've had government support in terms of the 350 billion rand government support framework. And basically, those are the factors that have changed since the last 5 years. And I think the factor that has not changed, that we probably don't place much reliance on, but is a very important factor, is that Eskom is the only operator and owner of a nuclear plant on the African continent. And I think from a funding perspective, that speaks volumes from an operator risk perspective. So when someone is going to fund this thing, the first thing they're going to ask you is, okay, who's going to operate this thing? And do you have the qualifications to actually operate it? Any project finance or structured finance proposal would take into account operational risk first and foremost. As it relates to the funding, yes, I think there are various ways of funding a nuclear build program. I think government has come out and said that, listen, part of the RFP proposals that we'll be sending out is a funding proposal that will be coming back from the OEMs. So we await that process to unfold, to understand what models are out there. National Treasury and Department of Energy have done significant studies in this aspect already, and we will also engage with them to understand what the outcome of those studies are. And also, I think we should take comfort from the fact that a nuclear build program is not unique to South Africa. Nuclear build programs occur across the world on a daily basis. And somehow or somewhere, those projects are funded. So on the basis that these things have been done before, and given the fact that we have a 10-year time horizon to actually do them, I'm sure we can actually make a plan to fund this thing somehow or somewhere.
Mr. Manchanja, also, at the moment, in our generation fleet, and this is just talking about where I work, nuclear is the cheapest. It's the cheapest. We're getting more, the costs of running Quebec are the lowest in the entire generation fleet. And so at the moment, in fact, the nuclear fleet is the most profitable of the entire fleet. And the nuclear plants have a life of up to 8 years, and we estimate that the repayment period will be about 20 years. So once you know that, you can put in any number and check if over an 8-year period, the revenue that you will generate will be enough to repay back the original debt or the original cost. And if you can do it in 20 years, you can just put in any number. Now, we do not intend to build the entire 9.6 gigawatts at once. As Mr. Koko says, perhaps we'll start with 2 units. Perhaps we'll start with 25% of the program and get that working and move on to the next and to the next and to the next. We still have to model that. As you know that Eskom has for a while not really been involved. We've been advising the Department of Energy, but not directly involved. But we will wait government's pronouncement on the institutional arrangements going forward. The guaranteed portion of our debt.
Thank you, Mr. Malika. Yes, on the debt position of the company, as of September, we had 322 billion rand worth of debt as a company. and we've utilized 161 billion rand worth of government guarantees to secure that debt. So just on 50% of the debt is government guaranteed currently. 162, yeah.
The debt related to the new build.
I think the question was more around what is the service cost of the debt associated with the new build. We have an ability to track the actual cost incurred per unit of plant before it's actually commissioned. But a better way of actually asking the question is how much of interest do you actually pay on your 330 billion rand worth of debt? And currently we, on an annual basis, pay about 13 billion rand worth of debt or interest cost associated with the borrowings that we have.
Municipal arrears, Ayanda.
Yes, thank you, Brian. On the municipal arrears and how we provision and how much is going to be written off, we certainly don't plan to write anything off on the municipal arrears. We create a provision or an impairment against the outstanding debt as required by IFRS standards, and that's the way we actually go about creating this provision for arrear debt. But we certainly don't plan to write any of the debt off at this stage.
By the way, in these numbers here, there is an increase in the provision. It's 1.6 billion, 1.2 billion increase in the provision, and this is because of the circumstances under which we find ourselves. But if the case goes on in March and there is a possibility for us to engage in activities that will allow us to recover the money, we will reverse the provision. If we can't, we will have to accelerate prepaid. That is the only sustainable way out of the problem. Procurement and financing of nuclear. I'm not sure what the question was again.
It was a seminar.
Huh?
It was a proposal for a seminar for us.
Oh, a seminar. I agree fully on a seminar for nuclear. In fact, this morning we had engagement with the unions about these results and other related matters. And we spoke about nuclear as well. And they said, and we agreed to have a workshop with shop stewards. In fact, they thought it was a good idea to explain in basic terms how nuclear technology works and how we intend to finance it. We don't have all the answers yet, but to consult as well on how it will be financed and how we're going to take the company forward with respect to being involved in more nuclear. One of the things that we agreed to do was to separate the financing of nuclear technology and the nuclear technology itself from the current debate on state capture, because some people were saying from the unions that, well, you know, this technology might work. Its problem is state capture. And we agreed to separate the two. That perhaps if Eskom is not the appropriate institution to procure it because of capture or perceived capture, then we should give it to the Department of Water Affairs to procure. Or another institution of government to procure. And so we agreed to that with the unions, that we will have a workshop and separate the issues about whether the technology works, the financing can work, and how, therefore, does it get procured. On the question of prices that are increasing for the intensive energy users, as well as demand that will continue to be low in 10 years' time. You want to talk about that, Deva? Deva is shell-shocked. He just came back from...
Sorry, just to say that again. You wanted me to address the energy to...
Huh?
The energy...
Well, the argument here is that our prices are increasing and that demand will continue to be low and it will even be lower in 10 years' time. So what are we going to do with the capacity that we're building?
So one of the things obviously we did is when the group chief executive said we open for business. So we want to stimulate the economy in South Africa. I think the excess demand will certainly result in being used up if the economy grows in South Africa. We can't have an economy growth of close to 0.5%. So the idea is to stimulate the economy. We used to send out close to, in 2007, around 37,000 megawatts during peak, and that was the highest demand. So the economy can grow back to that point. Plus there will be a lot of residential demand. Obviously, when you get to a point where the economy grows in the country and our demand is being used up, then the tariff will grow in line with the growth in the country, and obviously the tariff will be more cost reflective in terms of how we produce. Also, the other issue is we're also looking to sell cross-border, but I think the biggest issue is we need to stimulate the economy in this country, get the industries to get up to the higher levels that were there in around 2007, and obviously there's a big drive in terms of residential side, and I think that's how we can probably use all the demand. But obviously, presently where we sit now with the tariffs we have, the tariff has to be cost reflective, and I think that's a challenge we sit with.
There is a huge demand of electricity in Southern Africa, almost unlimited, because of the levels of electrification of the Southern African countries. And so our idea is that our problem is not really that if we supply much more than we need as South Africa, we will have nothing to do with it. Our problem is the building of the transmission lines that will carry what we need to export to other countries. So it is something that we are going to need to focus on. In fact, our capital expenditure program, after this first 5 years of finalizing the current generation build program, the second 5 years will really be on focus on transmission lines. We expect our capital expenditure to shift more to transmission lines to Southern African countries.
Let's check if there are any people on the chorus call.
Sorry, there was another question on our pathway to investment grade.
Yes, thanks, Rod. Yes, I think we certainly have an ambition to get to investment grade in the near future. In our view, one of the immediate stumbling blocks for us to achieve that is the ratio that Brian spoke about before, which is the free funds from operations. Currently, we're sitting at 9%, and for us to satisfy one of the rating agency requirements, that number has to be greater than 12% on a sustainable basis. So all of our plans currently are geared to ensure that we are, in the medium term, going to get to an FFO to debt of free funds from operations to debt of greater than 12% on a sustainable basis. That would require us to maintain a margin of about around 38%. We're currently sitting at an EBITDA margin of around 32%. Thank you, Brian.
If you're all covered, let's try the chorus call.
We don't have any questions on the queue at the moment.
Thank you. Let's give you another chance, maybe the last one. If there are any specific questions that you need clarity on, we'll give a chance to Sikonati, any more takers, and Warren as well. Terence, are you good? You're good, yeah. We'll take those two as the last calls, as the last questions.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Singh, I apologize if I seem to have missed some of the things you said about the debt and what has changed. You once said you have been supported by the government to the tune of 350 billion rand, and you have drawn down 162 billion rand. And you say to fund, what gives you confidence now that Eskom can fund and build the nuclear is more confidence because you have been building projects. Am I correct? Did I hear that correctly? You are relying on confidence and experience of the past 5 years, which has not been at all good if we look at the delays that we spoke about earlier in the capital investment project. I'd like you to please just repeat that for me, sir. Mr. Molefe, if this is outside of these results that we are limited to talk to about today, please do not answer the question. The last presentation here of results, you mounted quite a struggle about the banks in the Gupta affair. And you said it would be your campaign to help the banks reopen those accounts. Are you still pursuing that project, sir? And you spoke about EE publishers as well on that particular day, and that you would make it your personal campaign to close them down. I've not seen Mr. Yelland here. I don't know if he's been closed down or not. Can you help us on that, sir? Thank you.
Before you answer, Mr. Molefe, in terms of the EE publishers, they are represented here. Roger is coming from that institution. The second round will come from Warren.
Thanks. Sorry, I was probably a bit long-winded in my earlier question, Mr. Molefe. Let me just restate it. There are independent power producers, including renewables, that say that they can produce electricity cheaper than, and sell it for cheaper than Eskom can currently do that. In order to be able to do that, they need access to the grid, but that is something that Eskom controls. Eskom controls largely most of the country's generation, as well as the distribution. So the question from my side is, if there are people saying that they can produce electricity cheaper than you can, surely for the health of our country and the growth of our economy, we have to remove the monopoly that Eskom holds over distribution in the country, put that into the hands perhaps of the government directly or in some other format, and allow competition to drive down the costs of electricity for not only our energy intensive users, but also the man on the street. That was my first question. And the second question was just around the penalty that Tegeta owes Eskom, the 2 billion rand. Where is that in the legal process in terms of getting that money, which I'm sure you could use to strengthen your balance sheet? Thank you.
Thank you, Warren. Mr. Molefe.
I have never said that we need to mount a campaign to get the banks to reopen Tegeta's bank accounts. All I said was, so what have they done? Can somebody explain to us what they have done so that we can blacklist them or we can know why we should not do business with them? I've never said I will go to the banks and ask them to open their accounts. Never said that. Secondly, EE publishers. I did say that I will start a campaign to close them down. But you were not at the systems briefing that took place at the Sandton Convention Center, where I apologized to EE publishers for having said so and said that the campaign is off. I hope that makes you happy now. IPPs that can produce power cheaper, that is fine. I'm just curious to know from what source. I think IPPs will be the cheapest form of electricity in time. Well, the renewables at least, wind and solar. As soon as we have storage capacity and the technology of the IPPs that is aligned with the storage capacity. We will be the first to start deploying. At the moment, we're just taking a big risk. But we're not averse to people who can produce power. In fact, the Department of Energy has announced coal IPPs and gas IPPs. We think those work, and we don't have a problem with it. We will connect them, we'll assist them to be connected. We just don't want technologies that will not be there at 7 o'clock tonight when we are alone with the system in the control room. And the system operator says, we may run short. And you look around and there's nobody to give you power. Because at that point, the wind is not blowing and the sun has set. It's a practical problem. It's not an ideological problem. It's a practical problem that we have on a day-to-day basis. And related to that is cost. Related to that is the concern that when the technology for storage is developed, what we have may not be compatible. Maybe we are wrong. Maybe they will be compatible, but we don't know. And the amounts of money involved, 193 billion, we will spend about 1.2 trillion at the rate that we're going after 20 years. It may be money wasted if it cannot be connected to the new storage technology that will have been developed. Maybe it will be able, it will be compatible. In short, it's like buying a lot of cell phones that may or may not have the capacity to have SMS. Before the capacity for before the technology for SMS was developed. It's just a danger. Sorry, it's just a risk.
Covered. Thank you. Maybe just as a footnote in relation to renewable energy projects, we here at Megawatt Park, most of the lights that we are using here are coming from the photovoltaic that we've put up outside. And for our regional centers, in total, we have installed just over 2 megawatts of solar. And we have also partnered with the University of Stellenbosch. We have a center there called Renewable Energy Center, where we are trying to do some research as to how we're going to store this energy going forward. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for coming. Mr. Chose has prepared a little snack outside there, so on your way outside. Those who have asked for one-on-ones, they can stay behind. Otherwise, thank you so much. We'll see you tomorrow at 10:30.
Inside us all lurks greatness, bravery, guts, determination. Every time you get down, you get back up. You take us all forward. You raise the bar. And we salute you, party comrade, with a Heineken Cool Can and Strongbow Apple Cider 6-pack combo for just 100 Rand from Tops at Spa.
What is the price of ambition? Early mornings, late nights, or sacrificing the little things now for bigger things tomorrow? Ambitious people are all made of the same stuff. Big dreams, big dedication, and a big attitude.
Welcome back to our 404 viewers. Let's recap our top story. The ANC has welcomed the Public Protector's report. It says the report provides a basis for itself and society at large to debate the issues raised. And it warned the party's deployees to use the report and to be vigilant against corruption. Speaking to the SABC, ANC spokesperson Zizi Godwa said the report should also be used to run campaigns against corruption.
The Public Protector finally released the report on allegations of state capture, having been granted leave to do so by the High Court. The ANC has welcomed the report, which mentions some of its deployees.
The deployees of the ANC at whatever levels, they must use this report to be vigilant. They must be vigilant, one, of the intersection between business and elected leadership, because that intersection must not bring about unscrupulous results which may damage and undermine the confidence of our people to their own democratic state and their leadership. Secondly, they must use this report also to be intolerant of corruption. And I think corruption is a cancer that is eating, and the ANC generally, although the ANC is not a corrupt organization, but it has been labeled because of certain individuals who get involved into improper conduct, whether it's councillors, whatever. And I think our branches must be intolerant. They must develop campaigns against corruption.
Kodwa said the ANC would support anything that would take the report further.
At the moment, the report, the fact that does not conclusively say there is a guilty on the part of any individual, but it does suggest the process. Because it may be important that there must be a process to verify the veracity of these allegations. We mustn't be left these allegations. And if at the end it's a commission of inquiry, if at the end, because at the ANC we don't want to establish a parallel process as well. We tried it, and I think all what we can do is to support whatever comes out of the process.
Kodwa said he had no doubt that the ANC-NEC would discuss some of the issues raised in the report. Lehana Tsotetsi, SABC News, Johannesburg.
Well, earlier, Eskom board chairperson Dr. Ben Ngubane criticized the Public Protector's report released yesterday on the state of capture. He said the observations it contains are speculative and were made without completion of the investigation. The report has highlighted that Eskom indulged in the alleged irregular awarding of contracts to Gupta family-linked businesses, especially a contract to Tegeta and contracts awarded by Eskom to the Gupta-owned Optimum mines. Ngubane also lashed out at those calling for the Eskom board to be dissolved.
The Eskom board and Eskom executives are taken aback at the continued condemnation of this proudly South African business. We now hear calls from prominent economists that the board must be dissolved. This is ridiculous. It's crazy. Look at the facts. You know, and for a professional, scientific person to just shout that Eskom board must be dissolved without a hearing is crazy. Let's stop this slide to a slippery slope for our country.
Well, Eskom CEO Brian Molefe has also lashed out at the report. He's also defended the power utilities' dealings with Gupta-owned Tegeta, which was raised as concerning in the State of Capture report. It included claims made that Eskom prejudiced commodity company Glencore and then helped Tegeta to buy Optimum coal mine that supplies an Eskom power station. Molefe says, however, that Eskom had to scavenge for coal after Glencore tried to increase the price of its coal from 150 rand to 530 rand per tonne. Molefe says Glencore then went into business rescue, and the practitioners said that it would have to pay the higher price or Glencore would stop supplying coal. He says he interpreted the letter as blackmail and did not respond, and then the coal supply stopped. Molefe also says he never forced the sale of the Optimum coal mine to Tegeta. He says despite claims that Eskom wasted money, he agreed to pay Tegeta in advance for coal, and the agreement has been met.
I'm afraid that had our decision at that time been to increase and bend over backwards for Glencore, to increase the price from 150 to 530, we would still be having a Public Protector report that says we are corrupt. Because what would have been the reason when we are experiencing load shedding and we have a cash crunch, to agree to change an existing contract with a supplier from 150 to 530.
Lashed out at the public protector and the manner in which he compiled the report. He said he has a gripe because he was never given an opportunity to explain himself.
And therein lies my gripe. I was never given an opportunity to explain myself by the public protector. I thought the Constitution also talked about the right to be heard. In fact, it is very painful to me .
SABC News on point with news around the world. Live transmissions to keep you informed. When history unfolds, we're there.
At which Clinton and her supporters painted an optimistic portrait of America. Statues of the woman who led the march to the Union buildings in Pretoria in 1956 have been unveiled against the walls of the State Theatre in Pretoria. Sophie de Bruyn, Lillian Ngoyi, Helen Joseph and Rahima Musa led 20,000 other women to the Union buildings against the Dom Passers in 1956.
It is for the youth to take the baton that we have already handed over to them.
What has happened to South Africa? Kutheni my postcards.
Stay tuned to News Today at 3 p.m. from Monday to Friday on SABC News.
The rand has stabilized after gaining strength against the dollar after the release of the state capture report. It was trading at 13.37 to the dollar after President Jacob Zuma withdrew his bid to interdict the release of the report, and the court ruled that it be released. It retreated to 13.50 against the dollar just before 1 p.m. One economist says the way forward for the rand will be determined partly by how the contents of the public protector's report are handled going forward. The rand strengthened over 2% against the dollar on Monday after the MPA dropped the charges against Finance Minister Pravin Gordhan. It surged again after the interdict application was withdrawn and the court said the report should be released. This may have been perceived as the strength and independence of institutions. Nedbank economist Isaac Machejo says the two factors impacting on the rand are economic factors and sentiment. He says the rand volatility will remain as long as there's a cloud of suspicion hanging on the credibility of government leadership. Machejo says political uncertainty creates perception that implementation of government programs will be impacted negatively. Well, Eskom CEO Brian Molefe says nuclear procurement will save South Africa from a possible 2026 electricity capacity crunch. He was reporting the power utilities interim results at Megawatt Park in Johannesburg today. Molefe, who was delivering Eskom's 6-month results for the period to the end of September this year, warned that South Africa could undergo load shedding again if it doesn't go this route. The country has had 15 months without load shedding. Molefe said Eskom's revenue had increased by 10.5% to 97 billion rand for the period covered by the latest report. He also said plant availability improved from 71% to 78%. He later broke down in tears as he explained his movements in Saxon World referred to in the former public protector's report into state capture. Well, for more on this, we cross live to our reporter Diabo Sito, who's at Megawatt Park. Thanks very much, Diabo. Now, earlier when we spoke, you had indicated that the state capture report was a no-go area for Eskom, that they were going to be having a press conference on it tomorrow. So how did we get to the point where Mr. Molefe was breaking down in tears and referring to the report?
Good afternoon, Nampu. Well, I can tell you that the tension was quite thick in the room today. But I suppose with the report that we saw yesterday, it's almost impossible not to mention it if you are the chief executive at Eskom, Mr. Brian Molefe. You would have to somehow explain to the country, your involvement and give them some sort of answer, something we could work with. Yes, indeed. Earlier on, they had said that the public protector's report is a no-go area, and they also reaffirmed that right after the briefing, saying that they will go more into details about this report tomorrow. So there's a separate press briefing tomorrow at 10:30 right here at Megawatt Park to detail or to scrutinize this report. But like I said, it was quite an emotional time for Mr. Molefe himself as he first delivered his financial results, which I'll give you just a few highlights about those financial results. And then just after that, I will speak to Dr. Ben Ngubane, who's the chairperson here at Eskom, and he'll give us his views about probably the report, that report, and also the results themselves. Revenue increased by 10.5%. Last year, it had gone up by 22%. EBITDA it surged 23%. If I remember correctly, it was around 11% or thereabout last year. Basically, what this is telling us is that the financial position of Eskom seems to have turned around, and they seem to be much more liquid. We know that they have signed a couple of deals, finance deals or debt deals, to finance some of the projects such as Gusile and Midupi and Ingula projects. Just how much that debt has come up to, I would estimate it to around 300 billion rand by now. Last year, they had their own projection that they would need around 55 billion rand of debt. By last year, it was 46. This year, I think it's just 14% that's short to reach the target for 2016. But I want us to speak to Dr. Ngubane, and I want us to give us his view about what has been happening with the public report, the public protector, the former public protector's report, as well as the turnaround strategy at Eskom. Dr. Ngubane, thank you very much for your time. It was quite an emotional time for you, for you as Dr. Ngubane, and for Mr. Molefe. You had quite harsh words as well to accompany that. Can you share that with our viewers once again, what your real feeling is with regards to this report and how it was prepared?
Well, I consider this a watershed moment for South Africa. We have been, over the past few years, sliding slowly along this dangerous slope. Someone makes a complaint, it's not properly investigated, reports are written that condemn people, that pass judgments without any due process. If at Eskom there is any tender that is incorrectly given, would expect Treasury and other institutions to call this to our attention, and we have a full inquiry, bring in the scorpions, bring in all the legal processes. This has not happened. And yet, today, we have a report that condemns us completely. Even a prominent economist says the board must resign. In other words, we are useless, we are complicit in all the wrongdoings. This is absolutely untenable. It will not happen in any democratic country that respects itself, that respects human rights and human dignity. We are sliding along the slope. You can see it in Parliament. You can see it on the streets of our cities. This is dangerous. Now, I lived in the bad days of KwaZulu-Natal politics. I know what violence means on the streets. Why should we create opportunities for that to happen? Because when people lose their sense of values, they lose their respect. There is no imperative that if I call a march on the streets, I protect the shopkeepers, I protect the innocent people. I have marshals who control that this thing is not hijacked by scoundrels and hooligans. It's all just free for all. That's not a society we hoped for in 1994. Mandela spoke of the importance of reconciliation. There's been no reconciliation in this country. It's only in words. Wealth is still in the hands of a few. Those few are not even willing to build new factories and create new jobs. Even the issue of schools of fees must fall emanates from the fact that the country is not united in terms of a plan to develop our people, to develop our youth, to give them jobs. All this creates tension. Then we get political instability. This report could have been delayed to be finalized with the new public protector. We sent in 42 files on the last day of the date the public protector was demanding that we send the files. We answered all her questions, but she finalized the report without even talking to us. Why couldn't she have left it to the new public protector, who would call us and say, these are the charges against you, what do you say? Nothing. Brian Molefe is highly prejudiced, and I'm afraid we're going to lose him at Eskom. And if that happens, Trudy Matonsela must take the blame. Because Eskom has recovered in an incredible way. No organization comes from zero to an EBITDA of 23 billion. It's organization. No country can solve its load shedding problems unless every staff member, every station, power station, everyone in the organization is working like clockwork, working, talking, consulting, and planning together. Brian did that for us. He moved us from a very negative situation to one where we can now celebrate these excellent financial results. I'm very sorry that we might lose Brian, and really I don't think that bodes well for the country.
Dr. Ngubane, I'm afraid there isn't a lot more time to probe this issue further. But what we do hear from Dr. Ngubane is that he doesn't seem to have much confidence in the current report as it stands. He wishes that there could have been more time given to him to be given to the new public protector. However, of course, we don't know what difference that would have made in the final report. There's 6 months to the judicial inquiry that has been recommended, and before then, we will probably find out, what Eskom will do in order to remedy the situation and how that will impact on its current form as it is, and everything that has been said about it. Nompu, I suppose that would be it from Megawatt Park.
Thanks very much. That's my colleague Diabo Sito at Megawatt Park. Ratings agency